Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Lucia Vasquez. I'm with Palante Harlem. I want to welcome everyone to our webinar today. We know we've had some challenges, some difficulties that we never expected in starting in March. We're healthy on our end, and we're here to help you guys as best as we can. Buenas tardes a todos. Mi nombre es Elcia Vázquez, la directora de la organización Palante Harlem. Aquí estamos, le doy las gracias por unirse a nosotros en este webinar. Y claramente estos últimos meses han sido unos meses bien difíciles. ¿Quién pensaba que en marzo nuestra vida iba a ser como lo es ahora? Pero aquí estamos para ayudarle, asistir en todo lo que nosotros podemos. Para las personas que no tienen un buen manejo del programa en inglés, yo le voy a pasar esta llamada a Robert, que es uno de nuestros colegas, que le va a ayudar a usted para poder poner esta llamada en español. También con nosotros tenemos a Daniel. Daniel es otro intérprete, otra vez como Robert, bien profesional. Y él también, el que se va a hablar con ustedes y le va a traducir todo lo que se vaya a discutir en inglés. Así que, Robert, te la paso a ti. Well, as I said earlier, we've been through some challenges, but the good thing is that we're here. As an organization, we have yet to open up our offices, but you could always reach out to us via phone and via email. We're trying to be as responsive as possible. One of the, key elements with everything that's happening, we know that obviously, a lot of people have lost income because of the COVID-19. And things change every day in terms of the courts, in terms of what rent is owed, and what services are available to you. We had a very successful town hall meeting in Telemundo. And, one of the key things I found was that this seminar that we're about to have today is extremely important. That's what I learned out of the Telemundo town hall, simply because there's a lot of resources available. The thing is that we do not know where they are and how to tap into them. I am, as the executive director of this organization, I am honored to be able to have the team members that are on the call with us today. I think that, it speaks for itself about their passion to help us, to help our community. This was done literally on the fly. We called Mr. McKinney, we called Apena, we called Rebecca, and everybody said yes. Everybody said yes. We can spend a 7 p.m., what's today's Monday, right? Absolutely. Let's try to figure out how we can help our people. And, I think to me, that's something that really gets to me, because it really, attests to the fact that there are people that really do care. So I wanted to thank Becky. I wanted to thank Mr. Kinde and Apena as well, who we just met today, as well as Becky. But Mr. Kinde and I, we've been working for a long bit right now. And, and they're going to be able to really to have, a real discussion about where are these resources, what can we do to pay future rent, and to also pay the rent arrears. I think that, before we pass it on to these folks, COVID-19 presents an opportunity. I know, we usually say, oh my God, wait, I lost my job. I'm just, coming out of this virus, I'm recuperating. But you have to look at this as an opportunity to really take a look at whether or not the rent that you're paying is legal. You have to look at the opportunity whether or not you have a current lease, and an opportunity to learn your rights. One key thing that I tell everyone that I meet that lives in a rent stabilized apartment is you need to go get a copy of your rent registration. Your permit does not necessarily mean that what he's saying is true. So everyone on the phone that lives in a rent stabilized apartment, even if you don't live in a rent stabilized apartment, because you do not know it's rent stabilized, I encourage everyone to call the state agency that oversees the rent laws. And that phone number is 212-961-8930. I'm going to repeat it again. It's 212-961-8930. And the reason why the rent registration history to your apartment is so important is because, one, your name needs to appear on that paper in order for the landlord to take you to court. Two, It's going to show everyone that lived in your apartment and what rent they were paying. So that's going to show whether or not you have, the landlord is overcharging you rent, because there's increases that the landlord is allowed to increase, um, depending on the tenant, when they moved in and things like that. And then last but not least, and I mean, for some of you that are members of Palan, that are on the call with us today, you will be able to attest to the fact that sometimes getting that document signifies almost the lottery. We were able to get two tenants, one $175,000 in their pocket. They're still in their apartment. And another tenant got an $129,000. And you wonder, like, how is this even possible? And again, it goes back to the rent laws. What are your rights? And if someone, whether it was in 1984, 1991, if someone made a complaint about the conditions in that apartment and the landlord did not rectify the conditions and submit an application to the state before or after you moved in, if he didn't do that and the rent of that apartment is frozen, your rent's still frozen. So that's the key thing. Like in the case with one case, the Hernandez case that we had, his legal rent was $350 to his apartment. That's how far back it was that a tenant complained, which so happens to be that the conditions were still there, by the way, which was a window, the frame of a window. So it's important that you get your rent registration history. You could call it, and you're going to have a live person if you call 212-961-8930. And if you want to see whether or not, there is a rent reduction to your apartment before you look at anything, right? Because that just signifies money that's owed to you. You go all the way to the last page of that report. You're going to ask for from 1984 to present. Go all the way to the last page on the bottom of the last page on the left-hand side at the bottom of that page. If you see anything that says related cases, then you call back that number and you tell them to send you a copy of the orders of those numbers that are right next to open cases. It's really important that you guys do that, because this is not the first rodeo to your apartment. Somebody could have complained to your apartment, but it also presents an opportunity whether or not to see if your rent is legal. I mean, you could be paying $3,000 and not know your apartment's rent stabilized. But if you get a rent registration history, you could look at it, you could analyze it, and you could certainly call us, share a copy with us electronically while we're still working remotely, and we'll be able to help you identify if the rent is frozen or the rent that you're paying is legal. I mean, there are different factors of it. So this is when I say that it's an opportunity. This is an opportunity. It's an opportunity for you to get leases. For those of you that live in private houses that are joining us tonight, you need a lease. You need to get a copy of your lease. So the landlord, this is an opportunity for you to speak to your landlord if the landlord did not give you a copy of your lease, because without a lease, you're going to have a very tough time getting any help to pay the rent to that landlord. So I hope this makes sense. I hope you guys take the opportunity to call the DHCR, and you're going to request a rent registration history from 1984 to present. New developments is that court is still somewhat closed, if that means anything. The court cases have been extended now to August 5th. Found that about only 20 cases have been opened in housing court for non-payment. That does not mean that you do not use all of the energy and the anxiety that's happening right now. If you lost a family member due to COVID, and they're the tenant of record, I would highly recommend that you start putting together all your necessary documentation so that when you are in court, the landlord's trying to get the apartment, that you have your defenses. Right? COVID-19. Court, you have to understand that you also have rights. We understand that maybe you lost your job, you lost income, but you still have rights. And one of the biggest rights, the number one rights for everybody, rent stabilized, not rent stabilized, is your warrant of habitability. You have every right to live in habitable conditions. So if you have mice, roaches, a broken sink, a broken doorknob, I don't care what it is, this is the time when you call 311 and get those defenses in. You need to show proof that these conditions exist in your apartment. And the way to show proof is by calling 311 and having an inspector from HPD come over. And believe it or not, you could go as far back as 6 years of conditions in your apartment. And you could have that discussion when you get to court. And for all of those conditions that you've been living with for the last 6 years, you could actually get a rent abatement because of those conditions. And most importantly, force the landlord to make the repairs. So again, this is not, we know we're in a really tough time right now where, we're saying to ourselves, gee, I need to pay the rent, but you need to understand that you have rights, there are resources, and the landlord, yes, he's entitled to the rent. Absolutely. The landlord should get the money if we have the money. But at the same time, if you lived under conditions that are deplorable, then you should be entitled to a rent reduction. And that can be settled in court very easily. That being said, I'm going to, pass it over to our panelists. I know we have some polling questions, Jacari, that I think we want to get them out before we push it out to the panelists, just so that we can see who's in our audience. Can we move on to the polls?
I'm launching the first poll question right now.
Wonderful. Great. So the first question is, are you a renter? Or do you live in a co-op? Are you a shareholder? Are you a property manager? We do have landlords on the line that also want to know how to pay future rent. And I think it's good that they're on the line so that they can understand the processes that a tenant has to go through to be able to achieve that. And we also, of course, have our brothers and sisters at the other CBOs that are on the seminar on a 7 p.m. Evening, so that they can also assist their clients. So I want to thank them, and I tip my hat to them as well. So the polling now, we got about 76% renters, 16% co-op shareholders, 10% are at other nonprofits. Can we move on to the next question? Great. So the next question is, if you're a renter, what type of housing do you live in?
We're at about 50% of those present who are voting. So we've still got
63% are rent stabilized, 10%, actually now 9% are rent control, 2% NYCHA, 4% HUD. And then there's 19% that are other. I assume that those are the folks that live in private homes, private houses, and they're renting. So we got 66% that are living in rent stabilized apartments and 9% in rent control apartments.
Yes, we can.
Okay. The City of New York, through the Human Resources Administration, provides emergency rental assistance which is available to all, regardless of income. The program is basically to prevent eviction, give assistance with obtaining new apartments, help with moving and storage fees as needed. The HRA decisions regarding requests for assistance, for emergency rental assistance, are made on a case-by-case basis. In its evaluation process, HRA rental assistance exercises discretion in a number of areas, including the reasonableness of the future plan to pay rent, the amount of the rent arrears, whether the rent is excessive, in that a move to a more affordable housing will be more appropriate, whether past mismanagement should be to buy a grant or require a certain client contribution or financial planning or other assistance, whether more than one grant of emergency rental assistance over a given period should preclude a new grant. The future plan to pay the rent may be based in part on viable roommates or third-party assistance. The final RAU determination is made considering all factors on a case-by-case basis. RAU has determined that for certain particularly vulnerable population, RAU discretion should be exercised more flexibly within the boundaries of legal authorization to allow for grant approval in cases where the former less flexible approach would have resulted in a grant denial. Especially vulnerable groups include the disabled and adult protective services cases. In addition, currently, the agency and the city administration, the basis on which we make a determination is this. We are in the helping people business. When you apply for rent assistance, we do not look for reasons to say no. We look for reason to say yes. We are in the keeping people in their apartments. Even when you come to us and we say no, we do not say no and that's the end of it. We do say no, but do this, do that, and the answer will become yes. And tonight, I want to say to everyone on this call, please, if there's anyone in need, apply. Apply. Regardless of the income, regardless of the situation. There's a story to every case. We do not have a policy, we do not have a guideline that you must meet this certain criteria to get assistance. Each case is viewed on a case-by-case basis. You tell us why you have different arrears. But the most important thing you should be telling us, look, if this rent arrears disappears, if you pay this rent arrears, this is how I intend to be able to pay my rent going forward. If you can demonstrate that you'll be able to pay your rent going forward, the chances of your getting approved for whatever grants you are seeking is close to 90–100%. Because we believe going to the shelter costs the city more than assisting to keep people in their apartments. But there's no reason to pay this rent arrears if after we pay $20,000 for you to stay in your apartment today, the first of next month, you're still not able to pay. But if you can demonstrate, whenever you want to apply to us to help you with your rent arrears or help you with money to move to a new place or help you pay for your storage and moving, the first thing you should always consider, especially with rent arrears these days, am I able to pay this rent going forward? If the answer is yes, come to us for rent arrears assistance. If the answer is no, come to us to help you pay to move to a place you can afford. We'll assist with the broker's fee. We'll assist with the first month rent, security deposits. And after you move in there, if you qualify, you could apply for furniture grants. But the main thing, if there's only one thing you're going to get from my presentation of my being here tonight is this: always apply. Always apply. When you do not apply or come forward to let people know you are in need, you already get 100% denial. The moment you apply, the opportunity becomes 50-50. And if you are able to demonstrate that you could pay your rent going forward, the opportunity is there. The city administration, the agency leadership, we all believe that keeping people in their home is paramount in this society, especially during this health emergency going on, this pandemic. Do not be afraid to apply. You could apply online, and we have designated centers where you can go to apply. I'm going to be here. If there are any questions, just let me know, ask me, and I can even give you, I'll even share with you a number you could call. You could call my office if you apply and there's still some problem and everything. Let's talk. We're in the helping people business. Thank you.
Alcia, your microphone.
Hi, so thank you so much, Mr. McKinday, for this wonderful overview. I think it's important to note, that what Mr. McKinday is trying to say is, apply. If you can apply for what is really called a one-shot deal, do it. The one-shot deal is a loan. If you were lucky enough to already have a job, they took you back in, and you could pay future rent, absolutely apply for the one-shot deal. But even if you cannot pay for future rent right now,
Still apply.
you're still trying to get employed, apply as well. Because by the time that all the paperwork is in with Mr. McKinday's team, it is more than likely that you already be gainfully employed, so you'll have better chances. But I think the key thing is applying and applying sooner. My question to Mr. McKinday is that, do you need to have a court case right now, or can you apply online?
You do not need a court case prior to COVID, and even now. A court case is not necessary, but you need to demonstrate that you have a valid rent arrears, that you hold this rent. A letter from your landlord, a copy of your lease, something that states this is how much you owe. You do not need there's no court case needed prior to COVID and during COVID. No, you don't need a court case to apply.
And I think also to point out something really important is that if they don't have let's say a letter from the landlord, because remember, these are rent stabilized apartments and there's only 1 million of them left, not even a whole million. So sometimes the landlord might not be willing to put out a letter saying, yes, this person owes me money, but they could bring the rent statements, right?
Yes, they could. That is enough. We don't need, when I say a letter from the landlord, we don't even need a letter from the landlord. We need a rent statement. Anything to demonstrate how much you owe. So at least if you're coming to us that you owe 10,000, give us a breakdown. Okay, I did not pay for June last year, so now I've not paid. A rent breakdown, a rent receipt, or a rent ledger, anything just to demonstrate. We are aware that landlords sometimes they want tenants to move so they can do a minimal work on the apartment and raise the rent. We understand that. So sometimes the landlord they are even praying that we don't pay so they can get the opportunity to kick people out of the apartment. Whatever it is, at least just know how much you owe when you come to us, so we know where to start.
So you need a copy of your lease. You need
if it's available, with a copy of the lease, so that we know that we don't want you to pay the landlord and then the landlord say, well, and that will get you out on a holdover after getting the money from you. We just want to be able to be sure that by paying these rent arrears for you, it keeps you in your apartment. That is it. Anything to just demonstrate it. And if we don't have the right to the apartment, if the primary tenants can co-apply with you or apply along with you, that helps. And if there's any legal issue, we could ask you to go to for legal assistance, which is readily available in all our courts.
So you need to get a rent statement, preferably a copy of your lease, and then you need
proof of income.
So proof of income. So let's say if you're undocumented, right? Which there's a lot of us are like that. Would a letter from the former boss saying that
a letter from the former boss, anything. We know sometimes people walk off the hook. We don't live in a vacuum.
Right.
Most of us are immigrants too. So we especially, I'm the director of the program. I understand all the difficulties we all have coming here trying to make a new life. No, a letter from someone, and when you don't have your papers, you could apply your children's name. Even if it's a 2 month old, 1 month old, you could apply your child's name, and
Great. What about if they don't have children and they're undocumented? Can they still apply with a letter from the former boss?
If they're undocumented that they don't have children, in that case, I'm going to ask you, the person, to speak to one of our civil justice attorney in all our courts. HRA have, in all the courts, in all the housing courts now, we have attorneys there that are trained, and they'll walk you through the system on how to get you the assistance you need.
Great, great.
Don't ever feel, because we live in New York, we have the administration that supports everything we do. Don't ever feel because you don't have paper or someone, no one is reporting anyone. Nobody is saying that you don't qualify for this or that. But we are going to ask that person to go and speak to one of our attorneys, so the attorney could find a way to present it to us in a way that we could do something. And if we can't do it through us, there are other sources to make sure that, to work with you, to make sure you are whole and you have a place to live.
Okay, so this is in the event that there are no children, but if there are children, and you
apply
don't,
under the children.
right,
You could even get cash assistance under the children's name and everything. Yeah, because then you could establish a case, and since it's an infant, we're going to believe that the person doesn't have a job and everything, and probably qualify other things.
Okay, so this is really useful. Thank you so much, Mr. McKinday. I think one of the key takeaways from this is that you don't have to be in court, but also that how your agency across the board, right, like you said, you guys are not in a vacuum. You guys understand the situation, and some of us work on the books, some of us work off the books, and and you'll be able to accept those letters. So for any of those folks that need help with applying, they can apply online right now. If they go to Access HRA.
That is correct.
Right, so it's Access, it's ACCESS HRA. So it's Access HRA. In Spanish, Acceso HRA. And they also have a phone number if you need to reach them. And I know it's a 718 number. I can't find, oh, here we go. I have the phone number. And if you need to talk to someone, you could call the phone number 718-557-1399. And if you do not speak, if you're not proficient in English, just listen, wait a little bit, and then and you're gonna hear somebody speaking Spanish. You press number 2 on the phone, and then they're gonna get you to a representative that can answer your question in Spanish. So I think this is very good. I'm sure there's a bunch of questions for you, Mr. McKinday, but I thought I'd probably get some of these questions out by asking you these questions myself, getting ahead of it. And again,
that is fine.
Thank you so much. Yeah. So with us also is Rebecca, which she's with the New York State Homes and Community Renewal. Rebecca is going to talk about the money that the governor, the law that the governor applied, where there's $100 million with the state to help with rent arrears. I know we like to believe that, $100 million is a lot of money, but it's not. Not in this case, not with COVID-19. Do we have Rebecca on the line, Robert?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, wonderful. There she is. Hi, thank you so much for joining us, Rebecca.
Of course, thank you for having me. And thank you everyone for being here today.
Hello.
So I want to tell you today about a new program called the New York State COVID Rent Relief Program. This is a temporary program to help low-income renters pay their rent for April, May, June, and July. To apply for the program, you need to be a low-income renter. And if you're living in Manhattan, the program says that low income means that if you have 3 people in your family, your household income for a whole year needs to be less than $81,900. And if you have 4 people in your family, then it needs to be less than $90,950. So those are the income requirements. And it's different for every county in New York State. The other big requirement in this program is that a household has to be something called rent burdened. And what that means is that before COVID, so in February, you were paying more than 30% of your income towards your rent. So for example, if in February you made $2,000 a month, but your rent was $700 a month, you would be paying more than 30% of your income to rent, and you could qualify for this program. You also have to have a rent burden at the time you apply in July. So that means that if your income went down to $1,000 a month and your rent is still $700 a month, that you would apply for, that you might qualify for this program. So again, you have to be a low-income renter, and you have to have a rent burden. If you have Section 8, either a Section 8 voucher or you live in public housing, you're not eligible for this program because your rent in those programs is limited based on your income. And if you do have a Section 8 voucher or you do live in public housing and you've lost your job or you've lost hours and your income has gone down, you should contact your caseworker at the housing authority and they'll help you reduce your payment because you have lost income. So how do you apply for this program? Like I said, this is a new program and it has not launched yet, but I will make sure to tell everyone when it launches. It should be in the next week, and there will be an online application on the HCR website. And when you apply, you'll have to show what your income is and that you have a rent burden. So you will need to provide documentation saying what your income is. You'll need to have a government issued ID, and you'll need a copy of your lease. And once you fill out the application and you're found eligible, the landlord will get the payment directly. So you don't have to worry about that. The payment will go directly to the landlord. Now again, this is a short-term temporary program for helping people with their rent for April, May, June, and July. You do not need to be behind on rent to apply for this program. If you're able to pay your rent during those months, then you can get assistance as a credit towards future rent payments. You do not need to be at risk of eviction or have any documentation from a court to apply for this program, and you do not need to pay these funds back. This is a one-time subsidy to you, and that goes directly to your landlord. Now, a big question we get about this program is how much money could I get through this program? And that's where things get a little complicated. So let's say you were making $2,000 a month in February and paying $700 in rent. And then you lost income and now you're paying $700 in rent, but you're only making $1,400 a month. The subsidy will basically get you back to paying whatever percent of your income to rent you were paying in February. So if you were paying 35% of your income then, you should be paying 35% now, and the subsidy will cover the difference between those two numbers. So it's a little bit different than Section 8 or public housing or a lot of other programs. I would encourage everyone to apply when the application goes online. It has questions at the beginning, about 5 questions that should let you know pretty quickly if you're eligible or not, so you don't have to fill out the whole application if you're not eligible. We will also have paper applications available in a number of languages if that is more helpful to people. If you are undocumented, as long as there's one member of your household that has an eligible immigration status, one person that is documented, you are eligible for this program. And that person could be your child, your spouse, it could be anyone in the household. So that is my quick overview, and if you have questions for me, I'm happy to take them.
And you're muted, Elsia.
Hi, Vicki, I have one question. You mentioned about the income criteria for Manhattan. How does that compare to the Bronx?
So there will be a big chart on our website that'll let people look that up because it's different in every place. But I can send that to you. I think it's a little less in the Bronx.
Okay, it's a little less than the Bronx.
Yeah.
And the same thing probably with Brooklyn.
Yeah, exactly.
We have these micro grants, and it's only for Manhattan folks. So I want to make sure that my folks in the Bronx, you know, my brothers and sisters in Brooklyn. So yeah, so it would be for the Bronx, it would be slightly lower, you think?
I think it's slightly lower. I could look it up real quick if I have a second, but again, there'll be a big chart on our website, and that again, the first 5 questions in the application will help people. They'll just put in some basic information, and it'll tell you if you're eligible or not, if you might be eligible or not.
So so if you're a family of 3, the most you can make if you live in Manhattan is $81,000, which I think is pretty much in line with all of our
Yes,
clients.
yes, yes.
If you're a family of 4, we're looking at no more than $90,000.
Yeah, closer to $90,000. That's right.
Now, my question to you would be that does that cover people that live in private homes that are renting?
Yes. So you could be renting an apartment building, you could be renting a single family home, or renting a room from someone, as long as you can give us documentation that shows that you're a renter.
Wonderful. This is great because we've actually had some questions from people that are roommates and they're having a tough time being able to come in. So roommates, rent stabilized, rent control, private house. The only ones that cannot apply is folks that are getting Section 8 subsidies,
Yep, Section 8 in public housing, yep.
right? But those guys can get it from Mr. McKinday's team as well. Question is, and I'm sure there's a question out there somewhere, can someone double dip on both agencies? Apply for DSR and apply for Mr. McKinday?
So the one thing I would say about this program, and this is getting into the details, but the way the legislature wrote this program is if you go to Mr. McKinday and get a one-shot deal, that counts towards your income. So let's say you got $10,000 from Mr. McKinday, that would get added to your income, and that could make you income ineligible for this program.
This is very helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Rebecca, this is great. You're going to stick around for some questions, right? I know you're zooming away with a bunch of Zoom calls and Mr. McKinnon and everybody else. I want to introduce a new program to our folks. This is a program that I actually learned about it a few years back for families that really helps paying future rent. A lot of our folks are constantly struggling to make ends meet. You know, sometimes you have to decide whether you're going to buy some cookies for your children versus paying the rent. And also even food for that matter. So with us today is this young lady that I just met, and she's going to be my best friend, I guarantee you. We're going to Harlemize her because of the need, and we need more education around this program because it's something that I think we should tap into as a community. You know, and again, you know, these are programs, when you take programs that are social services, it's not a permanent program, right? You use it to get yourself up and running, and then you can leave the program. But with that being said, I want to introduce Apena on the phone with us, on the webinar with us. Apena, you want to talk to them about the cool program called FEPS? They used to be called JIGITs. For a lot of you folks that are not familiar with FEPS, it used to be called JIGITs. And then, Robert, could you bring up the slides for me as well?
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Vasquez. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having me here. It's an honor to represent HRA specifically on the subject of FEPS, which I will say stands for Family Homelessness Eviction Prevention Service. As the name suggests, many years ago, there was a city client that sued the agency. Well, the lawsuit was actually against New York State Office of Temporary Assistance. And they alleged that the state did not provide enough rent allowance for the people of New York City. As you all know, as you can attest to, rent in New York is very high. So based off of that lawsuit, we derived the program that was called JIGITS, as Ms. Vasquez said. Over the years, the state changed that program to what was then known as FEPS, which stood for Family Eviction Prevention Services. I would like to mention that over the years, because of the fact that Department of Social Services was very concerned for the, of the need of families that are facing eviction, they had a robust program that they put in place, which is very progressive and has proven to be very useful to New York City. The city took over the program from the state, and as of March 19th, 2018, Department of Social Services, under the leadership of HRA, has assumed full responsibility of providing this housing subsidy. So I believe your question becomes, what is FEPS? So there are certain criteria which I will briefly touch upon. For one, the family has to be facing eviction. And eviction, by eviction, I mean they have to be sued by the landlord in court. Now, keep in mind, unlike my twin unit, RAU, because of the fact that we're closely monitored by the state, we cannot have a FEPS application without a court proceeding. So I say that to say a court proceeding would be a landlord, taking you to court, saying that XYZ, you owe me some amount of money. As long as that family can demonstrate that the landlord has filed a court proceeding, meaning they've registered a landlord and tenant case, coupled with a current landlord breakdown, that is sufficient enough to apply for FEPS, of course, with other documents that are needed. On the other flip side, if the landlord actually takes you to court and has a court stipulation, we can also evaluate a FEPS application. It's important to note that in applying for FEPS, the clients have to have an active public assistance case. And in saying that, a public assistance case, you don't necessarily have to be a US citizen to apply for FEPS. Everybody can apply, because the premise of our goal is to ensure that all families in New York do not face homelessness. This is why HRA is here. This is why the Department of Social Services Housing and Homeless Program was established, to prevent all of that. So if you're undocumented and you have US citizen, kids that are US citizen, please consider filing an application. Second of all, your question might become, how do I apply for FEPS? As Mr. McKendy said, the agency is very proactive. They're they have a robust program in place. And also, I have to say, technologically advanced to enable you that opportunity to apply online, which is Access HRA. On the other hand, if you have any technical challenges, every client on public assistance is attached to a job center. I'll be willing to share that information with Ms. Vasquez to put out to our community. So this way you know which job center you're affiliated with. As you know, it's COVID-19, so a lot of centers are not open for safety reasons. However, there are a few locations that are open. If it just so happens that you have a center that is open, I will encourage you to please go into that location, asking them that you have rent arrears and you would like to apply for FEPS. In that job location, they have what they call a HDU unit, which is a homeless diversion unit. They will take your application, they will assess your needs and ask you for whatever documentation that is needed to establish need for FEPS. After that application is collected from you, it gets submitted to the FEPS unit for our evaluation. We have a unit that is comprised of at least 22 staff members. We're compassionate about what we do, and we go to all lengths within regulatory laws to ensure that we meet the needs of our applicants. I will encourage you to please give us the information that is needed to facilitate the process, which will include income information, whether you work off the books or on the books. Please give us that information, current information. It's also important that you establish all income in the household for all adults in the household. And there was a question that was asked relating to the fact that if there's a choice as to what apartment type you can apply for. As mentioned before, we do accept applications from homeowners, people that have shares in co-ops, condominiums, rent stabilized, or hard apartments. The only thing you have to keep in mind is that with these types of apartments, because of the fact that we answer to the state, there are certain maximum income guidelines, maximum shelter guidelines that we must follow. So along with the application, it tells you how much rent the state and the city is willing to pay if you're approved. It goes by family size and as well as income. That information will be shared with Palente, which I'm quite sure that we use as a guideline in advising you accordingly. So to tap into what Mr. McKendy said, we're all in this together. Our main focus is to help you guys get the subsidy that you need. Please be not afraid of the fact that you're documented, or don't be afraid of the fact that you're undocumented and scared to come up and ask for help. We'll do everything possible within our power to assist you if you do qualify. And just to add to that, if for some reason you don't fit the criteria for FEPS, we also take that extra step in ensuring that we divert your application to other subsidy programs within the agency that might suit your need. So having said that, that's a brief overview of what we cover, of what we do. We look forward to helping you guys, and I want to thank you guys for the privilege of your time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Apina. So just so that I can just circle back, so FEBS is a program that would really work well for families that have children.
Exactly.
Right.
But if I can add to that, say for instance, we say family as in general. However, if I'm a pregnant woman, if I'm single and I'm pregnant, right? First pregnancy, the caveat is that they can't qualify for FETS only because of the fact that that's an expectant mother that is having a child. So the goal is to ensure that they have a safe and secure environment to welcome that child into the world.
Terrific. And that program, so the one or two key things that I think is that there's a cap as to how much rent the landlord can charge in order to get FEPS.
Correct. That is true.
Amount, like he cannot charge $3,000 and they're like, yes, sure, Mr. Landlord, of course, why not, right?
Well, well, yeah. Here's the thing. If I can give you an example, as a landlord, as we know, they can charge anything. As a tenant, you have to make a conscious decision if you can afford that rent. Right. So if I'm on public assistance and I'm looking for, say for instance, I'm looking for an apartment and a 2-bedroom apartment in Williamsburg, which seems to be a prime rent area. If the rent is $3,000, I can honestly afford that, because for a family of 2, for instance, the FEPS maximum allowable rent amount approved, if approved, is $1,323. So in that instance, I will not be looking for an apartment that's $3,000. I'll be looking for something up to $1,323 for a family of 2. So just give an example.
The rent of the apartment cannot be $1,323, or that the city will help the family with a rent, a total amount of $1,323. Which one is?
The second, the latter. The city will help the client as long as their rent is up to $1,323 for a family of 2.
As long as the rent is, so in other words, for a family of 2, right? So what about, our families usually go like a family of 4.
Okay, let's use that. Okay.
What does that math look like?
The maximum for a family of 4, which is the same as for a family of 3, is $1,580.
Okay. So what this means, if I understand correctly, is that your rent cannot be higher than $1,580.
Precisely.
you were to, qualify with all the different criteria, which
Correct.
involves a child going to school. It has nothing to do with the family having documents or not documents.
Correct.
It's about the child and all the way to the child. If the family is unable to, to hit the lottery, let's say, and still working, these jobs, as long as the child is in school all the way through college, we could potentially have it, assuming that the rent would not go higher than 1,580, which I doubt because this is New York City and our
Correct.
rents are like about 1,300. So one of the things that I said at the beginning of this webinar was that, there's permanent stuff and there's temporary help, right? So
Correct.
this would be a temporary help that families can tap into,
Mhm.
for all intents and purposes, because our families usually are about four, two children, mom and dad.
Okay.
The rent cannot be no higher than 1,580. Once it
Absolutely.
gets to that, then what happens? The agency says, go find another apartment or you're on your own, right?
Okay. Well, I wouldn't say that because of the fact that we go above and beyond. If the family doesn't has a rent that is above that amount, they're not going to be eligible. However, we're going to funnel that application to a different unit that can possibly negotiate an acceptable level that fits the FEPS criteria.
That's
That's
great.
like a hit or miss because it depends on the landlord if they're willing to lower the rent.
Okay.
But
And
we do have.
yeah, this is really good information. You're gonna come to the housing conference next year. If it works out, okay?
My pleasure.
So our housing conference for all of those you guys usually draws about 700 people.
Oh,
And,
wow.
yeah, and there's like 4 workshops going on at the same time. It's madness, but this is very, very helpful information because I think that our community, we're missing that. We're missing how to go about FEPS. And I think you're explaining it very detailed to the
Thank you.
point that we know, one, we have to have an active court case.
Correct.
So for those of you that want to apply for FEPS, we got to wait for the landlords to start sending court documents. And then we could, put our boots on and see, we could get you through that. In the worst scenario, if you don't qualify for FEPS, at least Mr. McKinday's team can help us with a one-shot deal. So you could really apply for both things at the same time while you're in court, and the court will wait and give extensions, give adjournments in court to
Absolutely.
you could get some information, you could get a determination from the agency.
Mm-hmm.
Terrific. Again, you guys, thank you so much. I know you guys been in, with us a whole hour. I think I'm going to pass it over to Robert so we could take the Q&A.
Sure. Yes, we have several questions here that we can.
Thank you.
I can start to starting from the ones that were earlier. If I have a question posted here. If your refrigerator breaks down, how long does your landlord have to repair and or replace the broken refrigerator? 3 days, 5 days?
Well, I think I can answer that. There is no determined time. Unfortunately, if you were to call 311, 311 will send you over more to DHCR. I would say though that the owner should replace it. But in terms of what, how fast, look, the reality is that with COVID, there's no real time anymore. But, assuming a 24-hour C-class violation that landlords don't normally adhere to, and this is like, like fire, cascading leaks, you could imagine. So if the landlord does not get you a refrigerator, a replacement, the only other option would be to take him to court. And right now we have to wait until August. So I'm hoping that you could get your refrigerator before then. You could threaten the landlord and say that you're going to initiate an HP action against the landlord to, motivate him or her to get you the refrigerator a lot sooner. Because clearly you need a fridge, it's summer, and, and refrigerators are dangerous if they're not operational. Next question.
Are the HRA offices back open in the Bronx?
Robert, can you repeat the question again?
Yes. Are the HRA offices back open in the Bronx?
To the best of my knowledge, some offices are open, but in order for me to be precise, I'll have to go back and check the email, the latest information on that. But there are some offices open, yes.
We have a question in Spanish, and I'll read it in Spanish, and our interpreter will translate that into English. Soy Agustín Martínez. Quiero saber cómo puedo aplicar para que me ayuden con la renta que debo 3 meses.
I think Mr. McKinley's microphone
Oh,
is muted. Can you unmute him?
yeah.
Yes, we can help you with your rent arrears. The first question is, are you currently receiving public assistance? If the answer is yes, call the center and they'll, and follow up with your worker and they submit a request to us. If not, you could apply online or you could call 311 for any of our center or location that is open in your borough and apply.
Just to add to that question is that the additional comment was, estoy deshabilitado por enfermedad.
Oh, if you are disabled, what you need to do, once you call 311 and you tell them you are disabled, we have our office now. We have our office whereby someone will call you and do the interview for you on the phone.
All right. Another question, another comment is in Spanish. No tengo resultados de la prueba del COVID-19 aún.
The person who's asking regarding the results, I recommend that they contact the center where they got tested to see what the delay is. Next question.
What about if your spouse just received a green card? My attorney told me we should not apply.
It is better to apply and have a place to live and leave the question of green card for another day. It doesn't do you any good if you have a green card and you are sleeping outdoors. If you have rent arrears, the first question is, you have to take care of that's the immediate emergency. You have to address that immediate emergency now. Who is applying? The person that have the green card, or the family member that is undocumented, or the person, or you apply for the children. But I will not cancel anyone not to apply because of what might happen years down the road when you have an emergency now. Housing is a necessity. You need a place to live. And if you have rent arrears, you solve that, and then, even immigration people, law eventually will recognize that this is a special time. This is time that, 40, 50 million people are unemployed. It's just a test of character not to have a job at this time.
Next question.
That's my 2 cents,
I agree with you. Next question, Robert.
Debo 2 meses de renta. Llamo a la oficina del edificio para ver si llegó algún arreglo o qué me recomiendan.
Well, if you have some money, if it's $20, $50, $500, $1,000 that you could pay towards your rent, send it. You do not need to speak to them. You have to understand that real estate is a business. You having a conversation with a person is not going to get you to where you think you're going to get. The landlord wants money and you need housing. So whatever money you have, pay it. If you don't have any money, send the landlord a note, handwritten. It could be in English or in Spanish. To say, dear Mr. Landlord, I have no money, but I'm doing my best to get money to help you pay the rent. Please call me so that we could discuss payment agreements, I want to make sure I pay the rent. A simple letter like that at least shows to the landlord that you are being responsible. You letting them know that I recognize I owe rent. I want to pay you the rent. But also, again, you know, think about the conditions in your apartment and use this as an opportunity to get some sort of rent reduction, rent abatement. It's not just about, you know, the landlord taking the rent. Some people think that if the landlord takes the rent, everything is okay, and it's not. A landlord can take you to court for the rest of the rent. But at least if you were able to give them, even if it's $50 you could show proof, like, look, I tried. You have proof that you were affected by the COVID-19. Now, if you did not lose money and you did not lose income and you just decided to use your money on new furniture, then we're going to have a problem in court because you're going to have to pay legal fees and all that other stuff. But if you genuinely lost your money because of the virus, you have defenses in court. One of the defenses before you get to court would be that you reached out to the landlord, but if it's not in writing, it does not exist. So send them a little note in English or in Spanish and let he or she do Google Translate. If you do not, you don't need to put it in English. You could just put it in Spanish, but at least you show proof that you let them know. Next question.
Oh, we have a panelist to panelist question directed at for Rebecca. If a secondary tenant double up situation can apply for the new state program in July?
So I think the question is, can roommates apply together? Is that the question? I don't know which of my fellow panelists that came from.
Apen, I believe that was your.
Okay, is that the question?
So Rebecca, the question is, I know in we did talk about tenant on, is it tenant of record you said? To prove tenancy.
To prove tenancy, right? So it needs to be whoever is on the lease, and if you don't have a lease, then there's a separate form in the application where you basically attest that you are a renter in this apartment. This is your rent. This is your landlord.
Okay, all right, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Do non-citizens qualify for rent assistance?
I will not say yes, and I will not say no, since each case is handled on a case-by-case basis. All I will say is that apply. Don't deny yourself the opportunity to not apply. Apply. If you have difficulty applying, call 311, ask to be referred to the civil justice coordinator in your borough. These are trained attorney paid for by the city of New York, which will cost you nothing. And they sit with you and work with you to find a pathway to stay in your home. You'll be amazed all the services available in this great city to assist people. All I'm going to say is that when you have rent arrears, don't say there's no help. Don't disqualify yourself. Reach out to us, call 311, let's get you in touch with the civil justice coordinator in your borough, and let's begin to work with you.
It's a question asking for the name of the rental assistance program again.
That is the name. I mean, the agency is the Human Resources Administration. The program is the Rental Assistance Unit. I am the director. We are located in all the housing courts in the city. Each housing court, we have our office in each housing court. You could go in there, even when you don't have a public assistance case. You could walk into to go to housing court when it's a legal threat or not. Walk in there. You find our staff there. They sit with you. They are authorized to approve your rent arrears right there. Or if you're on public assistance, you could go to your center, speak to your worker, or any legal, anyone can submit, if it's any attorney, any advocate, any community person can put your paper together for you and email it to me or to RAU, to our office. And we'll take it and we'll put it in the system and we'll begin the process of assisting. You could go to any community-based organization to apply. They'll put something together and send to us. Anyone, you could get any community organization to do it for you. Put your paper, your lease, your proof of income and everything and send it to us. And that's enough basis for us to begin to help you. Or you could walk into any of the housing courts in the city and ask for HRA office, and our staff, and find our staff there. They'll evaluate it and they can say yes and pay your rent arrears right there. Or you could go to your center, or you could apply from your phone.
Yeah, if you go to Access HRA, you could apply for everything.
Everything, food stamp, Medicaid, everything you could apply for.
Paid, right? You
Rent
could
arrears.
for rent arrears, and it's what we're talking about is one-shot deals, which is a lump sum for all the months that we owe rent. But then also HRA has another program that HRA can help pay for shelter, which I believe is like, depending on family size, but it's about $250 every 2 weeks, which come out like about $500 a month, and it varies. But I think, the first thing is you could apply. The center, not all the centers are open in every borough. There's probably one in every borough, but they're not fully open.
Correct.
But you could go on the internet and type in the word Access HRA, or you could call the 718-557-1399. And if you don't speak English perfectly, you could wait for the Spanish-speaking operator to come up and you press 2. And you could speak to someone regarding the application process. But you could do it yourselves. I mean, guys, we got to get on top of technology here. So, try it out. I mean, I tried out HRA Access myself, and it seemed a pretty friendly application. And it's an app that you download on your phone. Next question.
Suppose you lost your job and cannot pay. Suppose you lost your job and cannot pay the rent at all.
Are you receiving unemployment? In that case, if you're not receiving unemployment and you have no source of income at all, then I suggest you apply for ongoing public assistance, which will give you food stamp, which will probably give you medical coverage, and which entitles you to a certain amount of rental assistance every month. And if you have a family, then maybe Ms. Apina in a shop. Right.
Yes, we'll be glad to help a client like that as well, as long as they have an active public assistance case and they meet all the criteria. Yes.
Just to be clear, when you say active, you mean like if you're taking food stamps, that's considered an active case?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
It has to be active across the board for cash, Medicaid, and food stamp.
Okay.
So if in a household you have a combination of people that have just food stamp and one public assistance active case, meaning one public assistance case for family of 4, mother is active across the board, and she has 2 children that are on SSI, they will only be on for food stamp, right?
Right.
So in that sense, they can apply for FEPS. But if Apena, is only active for food stamp, I have no chance of getting FEPS because I have to have an active PA case, because that is what funnels the cash. They can't pay rent on a food stamp case, no.
Excellent.
Because the cash assistant indicates that you have no money. But
Correct.
if you come to us and you say you have money, just give me food stamp. I have money, just give me Medicaid. Then we want to know where's your source of income. But if you're telling us you've lost your job and you're not getting unemployment, you have nothing. We'll expect you to ask us to give you money. And once we begin to give you or your family that money, it entitles you to a whole lot of other stuff that could take care of your rent.
And when we're on the subject, in terms of food stamps, anybody can pretty much apply for food stamps, right?
That's correct.
So if you have food insecurity, you can apply. You could also do the same way, HRA, Access HRA.
Correct.
You could apply, like I always tell people, apply. Don't deny yourself first. Don't keep telling, there are lots of people that qualify for food stamp in New York City, millions that don't even apply. It's a federal, the city and the states, they're glad to be liberal in interpreting it because it's federal money. The more people apply for food stamp and collect it, the more money that people can use for grocery in the states, the more employment it generates. So when people that qualify for food stamp do not apply, we just hold it in our city, we hold it in our states. It's 100% federal money.
That is true.
The next question, this is terrific.
My spouse lost his job mid-May, took forever to get unemployment. I lost my job end of May, and I still have not received a dime. He is only getting $280 a week gross, and I am not getting anything. Our rent is $1,700 a month.
The first thing I'm going to ask that person, why is that person not getting the extra $600 a week? If they're collecting unemployment, they're supposed to be collecting the extra $600 a week. They should look into that.
That is true.
But that's beside the point. If they have rent arrears, they have income now, they have unemployment income, and we're taking all that into consideration, they should be applying for one-shot deal.
Does this person have children?
An anonymous question.
But they should apply for one-shot deal, and let's start looking on how we can help them.
Just to combine two questions that are very similar. The one that's if I don't have documents, any kind of help for me, and another that's in Spanish, no importa su estado migratorio.
Yes and no. Because, like I stated, everyone's situation is different. And not only that, we live in New York City, where your legal, I even dislike using the word legal status, where your immigration status does not disqualify you for a lot of things. And I'm not in the business of telling people not to apply for when they really need help. I am saying New York City is not a place where people report each other for your immigration status. If you have rent arrears, try to apply if you have social security number. If you don't have a social security number, then the next thing is that to call 311, ask for to speak to someone from the civil justice office. Someone will call you and these are immigration attorney, and they'll walk you to all on how you'll be able to get assistance. No one is going to tell you, go sleep outdoors. This is New York.
I think one of the key things is that, it really depends whether there are children in the household and there's not. You don't have papers. So if you have children in the household and you don't have papers, you use your child's social security number.
That's correct.
But if you do not have children, not even in the tummy, you have to go call 311.
But if you call, and the thing is that if you're in that situation, you have to understand that in New York, there are organizations too. That we have as backup.
Correct.
That the city gives them money so that they can, I don't know how to interpret it, so that they can assist people in that kind of situation. Because we cannot use federal money for it and everything. And, nobody wants to say I'm giving people without documentation, all this money. But the city gives and funds organizations that they'll be able to fund those kind of people too, where they get the assistance they need. No one is going to tell you, go to the shelter. No one is going to tell you, sleep outdoors, especially not in New York.
Just to add to what Mr. McKendy said, I think we're all very fortunate to be in the state of New York, only because New York is considered as a sanctuary state. So we don't turn our backs on people that are undocumented. And being one of the largest cities in the world, essentially, there's no kind of talent, either in legal advice or what have you, that you can't find in New York. And like Mr. McKendy said, the agency has allocated funds to advocates legal entities like legal aid or legal housing legal services that can advise any kind of client with housing related issues. So I think we should count ourselves very fortunate to have that resource.
And just so that for all the viewers, the participants, we are actually going to be speaking to the commissioner of the Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Wonderful
we're
person.
gonna have, you know, our own Q&A. We'll probably just skip the whole presentation altogether, because we want to know what resources are there. And you know what I found out is that there's a lot of resources for people that do not have papers.
Very much.
You know, in fact, we found out that I think it was George Soros that gave, I do not know how much money, to the mayor's office of immigrant affairs to help undocumented families pay the rent, the back rent right now during COVID. It's $20 million. So that money was dispersed quietly to the organizations who are helping the undocumented community. So there are resources. So we're gonna have them come over. I think it will be next Monday that we're gonna have them to talk about what resources are there. But there are a lot of resources, even New York Care, which is an alternative to Medicaid, which is different. So I think, you know, the more you guys join in these calls, I like the fact that we're asking questions because it's the only way that we're going to learn what's out there. We have to, you know, mimic other communities in the city of New York where they have a voting block. They know what they're doing. You guys know what I'm talking about for some of you.
Yes.
So, you know, we just need to capitalize on those resources. That's why I'm very happy and grateful that Becky, you know, Pena and Mr. McKinney is here, because this is exactly the type of dialogue we need to have. What's the next question, Robert?
We have one in Spanish. Mi nuevo landlord dio un voucher para Section 8. Puse mi nombre, pero él me dijo que yo no cualifico porque no soy la primaria en el lease. Pero soy yo que pago desde que me mudé. Mi hermana me hizo un favor de rentarme el apartamento porque no tenía crédito. Ahora yo quiero poner mi nombre en el lease para cualificar por el voucher. Perdí mi trabajo hace un año y ahora vivo de public assistance.
The person should contact Palante Harlem because it sounds like we need to we need to put the lease under your name. The landlord is correct. If you're not the tenant of record, you would not be entitled to the Section 8 subsidy. But I think there's a bigger problem because the landlord knows that you're not the tenant of record and knows that your sister does not live there. And that's a major violation of the landlord. And we're more than happy to help you. You know, we'll submit paperwork on your behalf with DHCR to force the landlord to give you the lease under your name, under the same terms and condition of the lease that you have. Next question.
Requirements for low-income renters.
That's a statement or a question?
The statement.
It depends. It depends what you're looking at, whether it's the federal poverty guideline, the New York. It's the question will need to be fleshed out a little bit more.
All
Right,
right.
Rebecca, what do you think, Rebecca?
Yeah, I would say, you know, for our program, I think the low-income requirements are different than for the HRA programs. But again, for the new COVID rent relief assistance program in Manhattan, if you make under $81,000 for a family of 3 or under $90,000 for a family of 4, you might qualify for that program.
Wonderful. Next question, Robert.
Hola, ahora es que acabo de entrar a la reunión. ¿Dieron ya la página web para aplicar o debo esperar?
What web page?
He might be talking about
Access
the
HRA.
state program.
Okay.
Yeah.
We can answer that. Yeah.
Yeah, so
We
for
can- we
the,
have the answer. We have the people who've questioned, and we can reach out to them. That was the extent of the question.
okay.
I'm sorry, you were saying, Rebecca?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that the program that I'm talking about, the application isn't up yet, but as soon as the application is up, I will share it with everyone here so that you can see if it's a good fit for you.
And I'm sure you guys will probably put it also on your social media, right?
Yeah, it'll be on social media. There will be press releases. So if you're not following HCR on social media, this is a good time to start.
And I know it's kind of tricky how you follow, because I've tried it. I mean, we tagged you guys. We consider you guys partners. If they were going to find you on Facebook, which is our main platform outside of WhatsApp, where do they go to follow DHCR?
So if you go to New York State Homes and Community Renewal, you can follow us on Facebook or Twitter.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you. Next question, Robert.
Kindly provide the contact information for Mr. McKinley.
We cannot put Mr. McKinney out there like that. No. You call Palante, we'll help you get a hold of
That is it. That's better.
Correct.
Be more than happy to help. But also it will help us get all of your documents in place, like ready, to make it easier and faster for Mr. McKinney to be able to assist. Remember, Mr. McKinney is donating his time to us, but he's the head of the department. And if we start giving out his number, a lot of people are gonna get evicted because he likes to care and help everybody. And outside of us, there's a whole entire world out there that he also needs to help. Next question.
It is in Spanish. Yo tengo el programa de City FEPS. Tengo un caso abierto en la Corte de Housing, pero por ahora está cerrada la corte. El landlord me mandó el lease para firmar, pero no lo he firmado y me quiero mudar a otro apartamento. Es muy pequeño y porque tengo 3 niños y mi salud está peor ahora en ese apartamento. Mis pulmones se colapsaron por la humedad y el moho. ¿A dónde me tengo que dirigir para pedir mi paquete de mudanza? Mi paquete de mudanza.
You need assistance to move. If you need assistance to move, you could apply to our HAPS for moving expenses to help you with money to move and for storage.
The person is saying that they have city FEPS
Okay.
and that they don't want, that they have a case pending with city FEPS that hasn't been approved yet, I think. And that it's in court. They're in court, but because court is closed, they do not know what the status of it is. But on top of everything else, the person says that in the apartment that she's living in is uninhabitable and she would like to move. So I think, Robert, when I'm gonna throw the question back at the person is that, does the person have city FEPS already, or they're applying for it through the courts, with an attorney and everything? Could you ask the person that question?
Well, yes, with that will be interpreted into Spanish for the person who questioned, and we'll monitor the Q&A to see if there's a response.
Okay, so we'll come back. Next question.
I am in a rent-stabilized apartment with 1 roommate. The roommate was able to find a cheaper situation and is leaving in a few weeks. Would I still qualify for a rent arrears program if I am in a 2-bedroom with 1 income? Also, I am having trouble finding roommates because grad students who pay the higher amounts are less likely to come into the city because of COVID-19 forcing schools online.
The first question I'll ask is this. We're not even going to look at how many bedroom. We don't ask how many people, how many bedroom apartment. The first question I'll ask is, how much is the rent? And how much is your income? If your income cannot support the rent, to get assistance with your rent arrears, you'll be asked to provide something like a third party, someone that's going to state that they have enough income to help you with your rent, to contribute to your rent every month, so you'll be able to afford it. Because like I stated, we are not going to pay the rent arrears for you if you cannot prove that going forward you can pay the rent. If your income cannot pay the rent, then there's something called a third party. They don't have to live with you. The person just have to fill a form stating that, oh, I'm going to be helping Ranty Makinde with $500 every month towards his rent.
Now, what about, Becky, what about on your end? Would you be able to answer that question as well on the state level?
Yep, so there's no requirement in terms of the number of people living in the apartment. It just depends on what your income is and if you had a rent burden. So your roommate moving out wouldn't impact that.
Okay, so there's two different views. With the city, that you have to show that you could pay the rent going forward, but with the state, this is kind of like a one shot for these months. And, you know, first come, first serve, because there's only 100 million. So make sure you follow DHCR on social media so that when Rebecca puts it out there, you're the first one to apply.
Right. And I just want to just quickly say, when it does go up, you shouldn't panic if you can't get your application in the first day. The application will be open for 2 weeks, and it'll be prioritized based on serving the lowest income people first. So even if you get your application in the last day, if you're one of the lowest income people, you'll be prioritized first.
Okay. And the idea is that that's going to be dispersed in August, right? The monies? Am I right?
Yes. Yeah. The idea is to try to get the payments out in August.
Right, so you'll apply. The application going to be out about next week, and by August, which is pretty much right around the corner, if you qualify and you're selected, you'll get the money, and then you get another round at the landlord kind of deal. Next question, Robert.
Where are you supposed to live on 1,323 or 1,580? Please enlighten me.
You'll have to speak to the state legislature. And we don't really make the policy, we just implement it.
Wrong forum. We wish that was not the case, but there's the story of the haves and have-nots.
That is true.
Have to continue and finding out what resources are there.
Mhm.
But yeah, this is a question that you should be asking your assembly member, and your council member, and your congressperson. Next question.
In Spanish, mi casero me quiere cambiar mi contrato de renta estabilizada por renta preferencial. Tengo 3 años sin contrato vigente. Él insiste que entregue papeles de ingresos anuales. ¿Estoy obligada a entregarlos si él rehúsa a darme el nuevo contrato?
Absolutamente que no le dé nada. Don't give him anything. If no lease, no documentation. Contact Palante, and let's take look a little bit deeper into your case, because as of the June, the rent laws that were passed last June, the landlord cannot revoke preferential rents. Now, if the apartment is a low-income tax credit apartment, which are rent stabilized, but they come in with, requiring the tenants to certify, then that, yes, you would have to be able to submit paperwork. But again, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? You need to have a lease. So don't provide any paperwork without contacting us first. You could give us a call tomorrow starting at 11 a.m. and I'll speak with you directly and see if we can help you. Next question.
Is public charge not an issue now during COVID-19 when applying for benefits?
I think this is not normal. What's happening is just called a new normal. And you know what Mr. McKinday said, and what Apena said, and what I'm saying is that the public charge needs to take a second role right now before you become before you put out on the street. But second is that we're going to have, because we have a lot of burning questions, we're going to have the Office of Immigration from the mayor's office on the phone with us, so that we can get these questions asked. I think, you know, we're getting a little bit too carried away about documents, non-documents. At the end of the day, people cannot discriminate against you because of your status in this country. They can discriminate for you against your gender. You know, there's so many things. There are rights. And again, you know, it differs. It differs between whether you have a child that is a U.S. citizen or whether you're single. And if you're single and without papers, then Mr. McKinday recommended that you call 311 and speak to, who is it again? Civil Justice.
Office of Civil Justice.
Office of the Civil Justice. And these are immigration attorneys that can speak to you one-on-one. Am I right, Mr. McKinday?
Yes, immigration, housing attorney. They'll work with you just to make sure your right is secured, and whatever assistance you need, they'll direct you in the right places. Well, yeah. New York City is in the helping people business. There's a lot of money out there for people, for different things that you don't even know until you begin to ask questions. And the thing is that we don't ask questions.
Exactly.
We just deny ourselves by overthinking.
Yeah.
Just ask.
Yeah, that's what I think. We're overthinking the public charge. We're overthinking. I think it's very different when you are, you know, in a normal time where you're just collecting on social services, welfare money, versus what we're in today.
50 million unemployed. I mean.
Yeah. So I think, you know, there's no standard thing. This is what we call in the new normal, and there might even be another new normal after this. We don't know. Next question, Robert.
Can I just interject?
Yes, I'm sure.
Elsia,
yeah.
Go back to that question on city feds. For that client, can Robert ask that question? The person with the city feds case, do they have a shelter history within the last 12 months? Right? If they have a shelter history and a current court case, that case can be considered for feds. We can convert it from city feds to feds as long as they have children.
Ah.
Something to keep in mind.
So there's a difference between city feds and feds.
Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Next question. This is very good. Thank you. You're going to be my friend. I'm telling you, I have a lot of questions about
We're friends already.
No. I mean, like, we're going to be like at the hip kind of deal. Next question, Robert.
Sure. ¿Cómo puedo obtener una solicitud para un apartamento? Tengo 3 niños y solo vivo en un estudio pequeño. Y con este dueño que nos renta, me sobrecarga mucho la renta. La verdad no sé qué hacer con esta pandemia. Nos ha dejado sin dinero.
So I'm going to answer that question. So what you can do is on the Palante website, all the way to the right, there is a section that's called resources. If you click on the arrow, it's going to go down and you're going to see a section specifically for affordable apartments. And there is Jakari, who's also on the line with us here, did a terrific job outlining all of the different places where you can apply. If you're outside of Manhattan and live in Queens or Brooklyn and you want to stay in that neighborhood, I would recommend that you apply to the CNC. Their application is actually online. We made that available, but also don't put all your eggs in one basket. There, you know, you can apply for NYCHA. You can apply for everything that's there, even Micholama Rentals. So just go to our website. Our website is palanteharlem.org. You go all the way to the right-hand side of the website, click down on resources, and then look at the section that says affordable apartments. And we will continue to update them as they come across. But my recommendation to you would be apply for everything that's free. Next question.
Rebecca?
Yeah, I would also just add that you can go to Homes and Community Renewal website, and we have postings up there for lotteries, for Mitchell Llamas, and other resources you can look at.
Great.
And I didn't want Rebecca to, if you were going to be late to
My next meeting.
right.
So does anybody have any more questions for Rebecca before we let her leave? Because it's true, and I'm so sorry, Rebecca. Yeah. Are there any questions that you see in the chat for her so that she can go to her next Zoom meeting?
Yeah, unless they post it right now, but they come in, every 5 or 10 minutes or so.
Well, Rebecca, thank you so much for joining us. And the minute that the application is available, if you could treat us a little bit special, send us the link.
Absolutely.
Media.
Absolutely. Once it's live, I'll send it right your way.
Wonderful. And then we're going to do a blast text to all of our folks on the call with a link, so they'll be the first ones to get it.
Fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you for
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me, everybody.
Thank you.
Take care, Rebecca.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, Robert, next question.
We have so many questions here.
It's 8:51. Can we?
I'd like to leave at 9.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because I need to still be my friend, and I just met a friend. I don't want to start burning bridges with him. Like, we're not gonna do nothing else yet. Robert, are you able to go through the questions real quick and see if we can collapse some of them?
Well, there are a lot of them are varied. So, for example, I can read another one here. Good evening. If you are awaiting unemployment benefits, do you qualify for New York State rent relief program or other programs? What about if you're receiving currently unemployment benefits? Do you qualify too? If so, what programs? What about if your husband? Okay, that's it.
Well, the answer is,
if your husband is undocumented, do you qualify? But this was answered also previously.
If you are receiving unemployment, you qualify for everything that we discussed.
Right.
Next question.
Who can I contact directly at your organization to go over options?
212-491-2541. And lucky for you, I'm the one answering all of the calls from Palante. So, sure, it's 212-491-2541. Give us a call tomorrow, anytime after 11 a.m. We're doing intakes. Next question.
Buenas tardes. Tengo un caso de FEPS en mi apartamento y en mi apartamento el dueño viene y entra cuando quiere sin pedir permiso. No fumiga, no pinta y no arregla nada. Está lleno de cucarachas. Por más que yo trato de fumigar, tengo un niño con autismo y eso lo pone mal y me gustaría mudarme. Quisiera saber a dónde tengo que ir para que me puedan ayudar.
This is an active FEPS case. That's what they said, Robert?
Yes.
Okay, so Pena, the person and the caller is asking, they have FEPS.
Okay.
They live in deplorable conditions. The landlord is not making any repairs. And when the fumigator comes over, whatever the spraying that they're doing, it's actually having a very negative impact on the child with special needs.
Oh, wow. That's a horrible situation. Under the FEPS program, a client who is a current recipient of FEPS can ask to move to an approved apartment for health and safety reasons, which in this family situation falls under that. They will have to fill out an application with a certified advocate or go to the center that is attached to where they live, or even home base, to file an application and demonstrate the fact that their health and safety condition is threatened by what the landlord is doing. And they'll put a package together requesting for move, where they can take the subsidy into another apartment. So yes, we'll be able to assist them as long as we have the right documents.
Excellent. Is that another question? We have 5 more minutes.
Yes, we have additional questions, but buenas noches. La casa donde vivimos somos 6 personas. El ex inquilino nos dio un documento indicándonos que la casa tiene ¿qué debo hacer? ¿A quién le mando la carta indicándole que nos dé tiempo para pagar del arriendo, que nos dé plazo para cancelar? ¿Qué hacemos?
Wait, esperar. Just wait. If the house is in foreclosure, the bank has it. You're going to hear from someone from the bank that they're going to come send you a letter. It has to be something that is legitimate. The landlord probably doesn't want to speak to you because the landlord's probably trying to recoup his or her property. But you take a risk at just giving money out to the party that you do not know who is in charge. So try to hold on to your money until somebody really sends you an official notification that, who you should pay the rent to. But right now, when the bank takes over a property, they have to assign what is called an administrator. So the bank, you cannot go to the bank and pay them the rent. The bank is going to say through the courts, this person is going to be my temporary manager of that house. And then that temporary manager is going to have an order from the court saying that he's entitled or she's entitled to collect rent. So for now, since you do not know what's what, you do not know who's on first, who's on second base, hold on to your money. Don't spend it, assuming that you have the money. And just hold on to it until things are clear and you get notification directly from the courts. Next question. Robert, are you there? I think we lost Robert.
Sorry about that. I was on mute.
Okay.
Question in Spanish. ¿Puedo aplicar a estos programas aún si mi contrato de arrendamiento se venció en el 2017 y no tengo contrato actual porque mi casero no me lo ha querido renovar bajo las reglas antiguas?
So the question is, can they apply for a one-shot deal or for FABs with an old lease, like a 2017 lease? Because the landlord refuses to give them a new lease.
I have 2 questions on that. What is the reason the landlord refused to give them a lease? But this is like almost 3 years since it expired.
Yeah, we don't have additional context on that, but maybe they will. They'll write in a.
It's always helpful if we have a current lease, or at least a current landlord letter stating how much the client owes.
just a repetition of the first part of that statement, Apena.
It's always advisable for us, for the client, to demonstrate that they have a current lease. And in the instance where the landlord refused to give this person a lease, which expired in 2017, the agency must have a way of establishing that this client still lives in that household. So in that instance, we're going to need something like a current utility bill or current bank statement. And it's strongly advised that we have something current from the landlord verifying that this household resides at that property and how much they owe.
And if it's a rent stabilized apartment lease, the other version, the other way of getting a copy of a semi-lease, as I like to call it, is by asking the state, ACR, for a copy of the rent registration history, because the landlord is required to register you every year with the state.
That's correct.
So you could call the number 212-961-8930, ask to be mailed a copy of your rent registration history from 1984 to present. They're gonna mail it to your home, and there you will see your name. And that you could go to Apena's team, to Mr. McKinday's team, and apply. But it's always better to have some sort of proof that there is a lease term.
Yes.
One more question, Robert, and then what we're gonna do is,
Sure.
if it's okay with Mr. McKinday and Apena, for the rest of the questions, if we could forward them on to you.
That'll be great.
And then if you could just, we could do it for everybody else. We could do a Q&A and do a blast email to everyone on the call, because it, knowledge is power. So we're gonna share everybody's question. We're just gonna keep people's names anonymous, of course. One more question, Robert, you get to pick.
Sure. If I have a case of overcharge already, can I apply for a one-shot deal, or what program? The question is, I owned rent since April until now.
The overcharge case has nothing to do with the one-shot deal, and the overcharge case with the state is gonna take a while. So apply. I have one last question, because now I've figured out how to navigate the questions over here. There's one case here that I think Mr. McKinday and Apena can help us, Robert. And Daniel, I'm sorry I'm doing this to you, but here what it says, I had to recertify my case, and it expired in June. Pero siguieron dando, quisiera saber si llegaré a citar. So there's a person who applied. Daniel, this is the question at 8:15 p.m.
Yes, I see it. I can read that if you like.
Yeah, could you let's do just like one last question, and then
Tenía una rectificación en mi caso y se vencía en junio, pero me siguieron dando. Quisiera saber si me llegará la cita, porque traté de llamar. Nunca contestaron a asistencia pública, y tengo temor en estos momentos que me cancelen mi caso por la situación.
So they had to certify for HRA in June.
So what is the question, Elsia? They certified in June?
Yeah, it expired because of COVID. Everything is closed. So
Correct.
who can they contact regarding their certification?
Okay, so the agency currently has something in place where all job centers have been informed to automatically continue with clients' recertification. They don't have to be there in person. There is something in place for that.
Terrific. This is great. But you guys are doing, you guys at HRA, you guys are working overtime for us. Thank you so much. I mean,
It's
the
our
fact that you
pleasure.
guys are doing the recertification, I mean, you guys are ahead of the game here because you can imagine a family saying, oh, my certification is going to expire. I need to present this paperwork and not to be able to get a live body like we're normally used to. So
Mhm.
I tip my hat to you guys. I think you guys are doing a terrific job helping us out, helping our people of color to be specifically, because, we have a very, very big disadvantage with the COVID. As you know, we were severely affected. Um, but this too will pass, like Palante stands in English, it means move forward, right? Pay it forward.
Mm.
But it also, and there's a way we call the organization Palante. It's about you need to push forward regardless of what circumstances you come across, what roadblocks you come across. You just got to push forward. It's like what King said. If like if you walk, you can't walk, you run. If you can run, the other way around. But whatever you do, you got to move forward. And I thank you, Apin. I thank you, Mr. McKinday.
Thank you.
I think Apin, we're gonna make you. We're gonna be attached at the hip because I need to learn this stuff. And I really mean it.
No problem. I'll
Um,
be glad to help.
just so that you know, I like to tread lightly on the side, and then I got you. Like we got Mr. McKinday, part of our team, and he's terrific in coaching us. Just to help our people. So if it's okay with you guys, we're gonna forward on the questions. Robert and Danielle are terrific team members as well. They've been at the helm with these webinars that I had no idea how to do. And Jakari, our staffer here, he just graduated from college. He has some sort of virtual graduation. So we're going to make sure, Mr. McKinley and Apena, that whatever we do for Jakari, because we're going to surprise him, even if it's through Zoom, but we're going to do something for him.
That would
Because,
be nice.
yeah, so thank you so much. Thank you for everyone that's on the online with us. And stay tuned. Our office will open at 11 a.m. tomorrow via phone.
There was a question. Can you repeat the phone? I was only able to write down 212-491.
2541. That's our phone number.
One more time.
212-491-2541.
Okay.
So let's just recap the phone numbers, which I think is also good. So that's for Palante, right? The HRA number is 718-557-1399. If that's for the English one. If you don't speak English, you dial that number. And then when you hear somebody speak Spanish, you dial the number 2. That's to speak to someone in Spanish. And then the DHCR number, that's for your rent registration history, that everybody should have a copy of it, is 212-961-8930. So we will follow up with you guys with the answers to the rest of the questions. We're also going to follow up with you guys with the link to the new application from DHCR for the rent relief. And also we're going to share a copy of the application to apply for feds, so that you can kind of see what the agency, HDU, what HDU is going to ask you. We have a sample of that application. So we'll forward it to you so you guys can read it beforehand and even, practice how to fill it out. So when you get there and you apply for the assistant, you're going to get it. I wanted to, again, thank everybody, but also let you know that this Friday, we have another very important call. It's going to be a webinar with an attorney, and we're going to talk about what important legal documents you need during COVID. We're going to go from health proxy, from living wills, from last wills, and we're even going to discuss pet trust. For those of you who don't know what pet trust is that we don't forget about our pets. But if God forbid something happens to us, who's going to be, who's going to take care of our pet? So we're going to cover all the nuts and bolts. Make sure to join. It's going to be the same time, same Zoom channel. We'll be forwarding the link, but I think it's a very good conversation to have, because if you're, God forbid, if you're in the hospital, you want to designate who's going to make decisions for you. That's called a health proxy. You want a power of attorney on someone. People know me, always know that I always tell people don't plan to fail, they fail to plan. And the reality is that while we're out there now, our numbers with this pandemic are down, it's going to come back. So let's plan this. At least, we know that it's going to come back. And this is free service. You're going to have templates. You're going to be able to speak to an attorney. And there's never a bad time than now, right? A good time than now to actually prepare. So I hope to speak to you guys this Friday at 7 p.m. And thank you so much again, Mr. McKinley, Apena.
Thank you so much.